Have you ever looked at life and realized that a lot of the stuff that you are currently struggling with didn't just happen? It grew slowly, quietly, sometimes inside you before you even noticed it. The 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. Most people hear that and they think of an old church sermon. Stone walls, stained glass windows, all that. But I think they're actually way more real than that, because these aren't just sins. They're patterns, they're mindsets, they're trauma responses. They're the stuff that quietly shapes how we think and how we love, how we break, and how we heal. And I'm not talking from some perfect place. I'm talking as someone who has been there, who has made those mistakes, lost those people, been hurt, and done some of the hurting as well. So I want you to do something different with this series. Not preach, not lecture, but talk, storytell, reflect, and heal. Because the truth is, sometimes the scariest monsters aren't on the outside. They're the ones living rent-free in your mind. And tonight I kind of wanted to give a brief overview of sort of all of them, and then I was going to make a individual video for each one. We live in a world where nobody really slows down anymore. We wake up, we scroll, we distract ourselves, we numb everything. And we don't really sit with our feelings, because when we do, they hurt. And every one of these sins exist as a way to cope. Pride protects us from rejection. Greed protects us from fear of not having enough. Lust protects us from loneliness. Wrath protects us from feeling small. Sloth protects us from failure. Envy protects us from insecurities. And gluttony protects us from pain. But protection sometimes becomes the prison. And I've seen it in my own life. Moments where I wasn't my best self. Moments where I lost who I was, or I acted out of fear instead of love. So I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm here to be open and honest. And maybe if you're listening, you'll see parts of yourself in this too. I remember a time in my life where I didn't really like who I was becoming. Not just on the outside, but on paper, everything was fine. But inside, I was filled with hate and confusion, trying to prove myself, trying to numb all the stress, trying to be enough, and trying just not to fall apart. And I didn't even quite realize some of these sins were running my life. For example, pride. I didn't want to admit that I was wrong. And wrath, I was so quick to anger when really I was just hurting. Or sloth, I was avoiding the hard conversations. Sloth. Chasing connections instead of facing loneliness. Lust. Comparing myself to everyone else. Envy. Wanting more because I felt less. Greed. Gluttony. Overdoing everything because moderation was uncomfortable. And sometimes it doesn't look evil. Sometimes it just looks normal. But slowly you drift away from the person you were meant to be. And if I'm honest, I don't want to be ruled by that stuff anymore. I want to grow, I want to heal, I want to be better. And that's why we're here. Over the next 7 videos, we're going to talk about each 7 deadly sin, honestly, through real life. That voice that says I'm fine when you're not. The constant hunger for more because you never feel enough. Anger that feels safer than sadness. Watching somebody else live your dream and feel smaller. Mistaking validation for love. Drowning your feelings in excuse. Freezing instead of failing. Again, I'm not here to shame anyone, but to understand myself and hopefully help you guys understand yourselves better, because awareness is the first step to change. And maybe if we just put it out there, talk about it, guys won't feel like they have to bottle everything up. Girls won't feel like they have to perform. And people won't feel so alone in how messy being a human being can be. I don't want this to just be my story. I want it to be ours. So if you've ever struggled, been tempted, spiraled, healed, fallen apart, whatever it may be, I want this to be a place where you feel safe and where you feel seen. You don't have to be perfect. There doesn't have to be any filters. Just honesty, because we are all fighting something, whether we'd like to admit it or not. And sometimes just knowing somebody else understands makes the fight just that much easier. I think the craziest part about the 7 deadly sins is that you almost never know they show up. They don't kick down the door and announce themselves. They creep in. And by the time you notice them, they've already started to change you. Greed doesn't start as, I want everything. It starts as, I just want a little more. Just a little bit more money, a little bit more attention, a little bit more power. Suddenly more becomes the only thing that feels like enough. And nothing actually is. Envy doesn't start with hate. It starts with comparison. You look at somebody else and their life and think, why can't I have that? And then it becomes, why them? And before you know it, instead of rooting for other people, you're resenting them. And you're losing yourself in the process. Lust doesn't always begin with desire. Sometimes it can start with loneliness, with wanting to feel wanted, with trying to fill a hole in your chest with something physical instead, even when you know it won't fix the emptiness inside of you. Pride doesn't always show up as arrogance right away. It starts as sort of a self-protection. You get hurt, so you build a wall. And eventually those walls turn into a throne. And suddenly you can't apologize. You can't be wrong. You can't be vulnerable anymore. What about wrath? It could start with frustration. Then unresolved frustration becomes resentment. Resentment becomes bitterness, and bitterness becomes anger. And that burns everything around you, including yourself. Sloth isn't always laziness. Sometimes it starts as being burnt out. You stop caring just to protect yourself. You numb everything out. You distract yourself and you say, I'll do it tomorrow, until tomorrow never really does come. And gluttony. It can't just be food. It's excess of anything. Too much of anything is a problem. It's an escape. It's trying to drown the noise in anything. Alcohol, attention, scrolling, validation, until you forget how to sit alone with your own thoughts. Like I said before, they don't feel evil at first. They feel relatable and justified and normal. And that's the danger, because they don't ruin your life in one big dramatic moment. They're not going to dull your character or blur your values. They whisper to you that, hey, yes, this is normal. Everyone else does it, that it's not that deep. Until one day you look at yourself in the mirror and you realize that you've drifted way further from yourself than you ever meant to. And that's why reflection is important, why awareness matters, why checking in with yourself is important, not in a judgy way, but to ask yourself, am I becoming someone that I am proud of? Or am I slowly becoming someone I don't even recognize anymore? So, this is episode 1. This is just the beginning, the start, if you will. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for 1,000 followers on TikTok. We are just getting started. I've got a lot of plans for every single one of these topics. Deep dives, reflections, conversations that I think actually really are important and really matter. Stuff people are really scared to talk about, but I think needs to be said. And if you're here, that means something. It means you care, it means you have an open mind, and it means you're trying. And I'm so proud of you for that. Because healing doesn't start loud, it doesn't happen overnight. It starts quietly with honesty and time. So yeah, welcome to the 7 Deadly Sins series. I hope we can all find it in ourselves to grow together. I love all of you, and I'm proud of all of you. And if you take anything away from this video, let it be this. Stay awake, pay attention to the small shifts, the tiny compromises, the habits that start quietly in the background, because the danger isn't always in the big mistakes. Sometimes it's the small things that we excuse every single day and brush off and put to the side. And as we move through this series together, again, I want to make it very, very clear, I'm not here to judge you. I'm learning too. I'm questioning myself too. We're all just trying to become a little bit more aware, so we don't wake up one day and realize we became someone we don't even recognize, or someone who can't be proud of themselves or love themselves, or someone we're never meant to be. So, thank you again. I hope you all have a great rest of your night. And remember, they don't define who you are. As always, stay rolling.